Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for October 26th, 2017. You get organized here, sorry. I see you missing a page of my agenda. Here it is. If you would shut off your phones, please, that would be helpful. What we're going to do is a little bit of housekeeping here at the beginning. For those of you who might be here for the first time, we'll do a few things. And when we get to the regularly scheduled items, we'll ask the applicant to come down, tell us what it is they're here seeking. There will be some discussion. We'll call for a vote. If you have an item that you wish to be heard on, there's a gentleman sitting outside who has some slips. I don't have any slips at all. Nobody has signed up today. And you can just fill that out, name and the item that you wish to be heard on, although I'll ask as we go along as well. The first item on the agenda is the receipt of the minutes from the last meeting, isn't it? The October 12th meeting.
Make a motion to receive the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the meeting, to receive the minutes of the October 12th, 2017 meeting. Would you cast your votes, please? They are received. The next item on the agenda is our continuance requests. We have a few items that have been continued by agreement prior to the meeting.
And we do have a list of requests that were uncontested, which are 4 items on your agenda. Item B19 on your agenda today is case PUD 1658, to defer that to November 9th. Item B20 for case SPUD 1015, defer to November 9th. Item B21 on the agenda, case PUD 1655, defer to November 9th. And item B22 for case CE 956, defer to December 14th.
Is there anybody here today that wished to be heard on any of those items? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move uncontested continuances.
I have a motion and a second to continue items 19 through 22. Would you cast your votes, please? They are continued.
We did receive 2 new requests for continuance for item B15, case SPUD 1007, to defer to November 9th. And item B18 for case PC 10510, defer to December 14th.
Is there anybody in here that wishes to be heard on either of those items today? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move additional continuances.
I have a motion and a second to continue items 15 and 18. Would you cast your votes, please? Those items are continued. We have items on the consent docket. These are items for which we don't believe that there will be any contest, so
I will read those into the record. On your agenda would be item number A1 for CE 965 to close a street easement on the block of Block 6 of Rosenneath Heights Addition. Item 2 is ABC 909 for an ABC2 overlay. Item 3 is ABC 910 for an ABC2 overlay of a C3 district. Item 4 is ABC 911 for an ABC2 overlay of PUD 262. Item 5 is C 6941, the final plat of Asheville, Phase 5. And item 6 is case PC 10512 to rezone 808 Northwest 7th from R1 to I2.
is there anyone here who wishes to be heard on any of those items today? Do you have a motion?
Move consent docket.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve items 1 through 6. Would you cast your votes, please? They are approved.
The next item on the agenda is under items requiring separate vote. Item B7 is case ABC 908 for an ABC3 overlay of the BC district located at 409 East California Avenue.
the applicant present? She just really doesn't want this, I guess. Let's set it to the heel of the docket and see if by chance she's just having difficulty finding a place to park.
Next item is PUD 1656 to rezone 8801 Southwest 59th from PUD 1466 to PUD 1655.
Good afternoon. Kendall Dillon with Crafton Toll, representing the applicant. And this is back in, I think, late 2012, you all approved PUD 1466. And within that were two tracks. There was the north track, which has development guideline standards that establishes for an age-restricted senior residential development utilizing the two-family residential-based zoning. And then in the south, next at the corner of 59th and County Line, there's a track that's Track 2, which establishes design guidelines for a commercial development. C3 is the base zoning. I think there's about 25 uses currently permitted within that track. So the intent of our application today is to simply take the development standards from Track 1 and now replace them, or replace the development standards in Track 2 with the development standards from Track 1, so that effectively it eliminates the commercial track and allows the senior development, residential development, to expand into Track 2. So that's generally, in a nutshell, what our application pertains to in regards to this PUD. It's the same standards. Everything's the same. The development's already, it's currently on Phase 2. It's a good success, and so with that, that's the reason we'd like to expand that into Track 2, and hope you'd approve our application.
I had a couple of things about this that are just puzzling me, and one of them has to do with the personal storage unit
Okay.
per lot thing. What is that?
It's established, again, in the original PUD, and then when we just duplicated it in this one. But there is a provision to allow for personal storage, but it's for, we'll say, accessory use only, or for only the people that reside and live in the development. So nobody outside of that can purchase or rent. It's just for the people that live there. But it's an independent building that's same architectural standard, everything else, but it's just basically a storage unit for anybody that lives inside of the development that wants to lease that as well for a month.
So you're not talking about people having one of those containers like on their
No.
lot?
It's a structure, the same as a personal storage unit, only it's a different architectural standard. But it's at this point, there's not been one developed with the current phases, but we want to continue to have that flexibility if we think, and it's becoming a popular deal that we're seeing in a lot of these, like say, age-restricted developments. It's just they would like, as everybody else, to have a personal storage unit. So you get your architectural standard, but we put a building on site, and it's just for the people in the residence or in the community.
Okay. But it's the unit, I guess, is going to be built to more of a commercial standard
Right.
under the previous, as outlined in the previous
Right.
PD, rather than to a residential standard.
Well, it would adhere in terms of, with the same architectural standard established for the houses in regards to the masonry and those. So it'll be an upscale building. It's just an independent structure that services as a storage facility for multiple units in the project, if that makes sense. So it's an independent structure, still has a good architectural standard, but like I say, it establishes, and it's just for the residents in the addition to utilize it for storage.
It'll be available to anyone in the addition, not just in this tract or whatever.
In what will be the new PUD, yes, the whole residential component will be eligible for it.
Okay, so the other question I had is about the preservation of the healthy existing tree cover, which seemed to be required in the previous PUD and
Right.
doesn't seem to be addressed here.
Right, there's a TE to show it on the master development plan, which our previous one, for whatever reason, we did not have it. We since have shown it's the gray hatched area, and we have submitted that to staff. So it's shown, and it's the same as the previous PUD.
I would really like to have that language added to the plan as
Okay.
well, rather than just on the map.
Okay?
Okay.
Again.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got one. You said they're age restricted. What is that age restricted?
55.
And over?
Yeah, well, yeah,
1 year, that's all.
I narrowed a little bit much, but yes, 55 and older.
So these aren't assisted, this is,
No, it's not assisted, it's just age restricted.
well, in that
They're very
case-
active.
Kendall and his group just don't like children. That's the deal. Is that fair?
I've got 3 that sometimes,
Well, where I'm going with this is sidewalks. I mean, unless, I guess, you know, it was assisted and nobody ever planned to walk anywhere, I could understand. But we, you know, require this of all other development of this type, and I'd like to know why, you know.
right, it's not set up for sidewalks. Like I say, the current developments do not utilize sidewalks. We do have the trail system around the pond. We've also provided some cut-through the blocks, and we've centrally located the common area. So I don't know that any lot is more than 400, 500 feet away from the common area. Mostly what we've experienced so far is we get a lot of golf cart traffic. And obviously the traffic will increase, but still, if you look at the central location of the common area, the overall development, especially given that it's age restricted, there's very little to no traffic in the neighborhood. So they do walk across the street, down the street for short distances, and so far, and especially some of the other ones that we went in, they function fine. So in this case, because of the way that the carports and the parking and everything is structured, it's designed where really there's not a place to allow for the sidewalk. But it functions well. If you look, it's hard to see, but
Actually, probably the easiest thing to see it on is this.
on the page, yeah, at least on this, obviously this is a trail system. I've got another exhibit somewhere, but you can see these different cut-throughs that we have. And then obviously, this is all existing trail system. This is a lot of ponds, different things. This is an existing clubhouse. We're going to expand and put another somewhat of a bathhouse with a pool and hot tubs here. But you can see the trail system, and then, like I say, we have these different cut-throughs that connect to the trail as well.
Excuse me. No access in your cut-throughs back out to county line or to...
No, right, it's
59.
secured, it's gated,
Oh,
so
it's gated, and so you don't want that.
you have to go to the entrance.
All right.
Right.
I did have one other comment I wanted to make. My staff report says that only street signage and wayfinding signs are proposed.
Correct. The entrance signs are already in place.
So that needs to say allowed
Right.
rather than proposed, I think.
Okay.
I don't know how the language in the actual master design statement reads, but I also have a little bit of concern on the issue of the walking trails, that people are able to sort of get wherever they want to go and not, you know, they seem, from what I can see, they seem to serve the east side fairly well. I'm not sure that the people who are in this westernmost side, if that's what that is, really have access to the trails.
Well, right. Those would be the one group of lots that probably are most affected by not having sidewalk. But that's what I'm saying. If you look at it, those lots, even on that far south west corner, they're not more than 400, 450, 500 feet from there to the clubhouse. But you'll also see the opening in the block that's a couple of 100 feet away. So there's no traffic. Most of the people, quite honestly, it's like you're on a golf course a lot. There's golf carts running everywhere. So, like I said, we think that it's operating well right now. We're going to continue. Obviously, it's a marketing deal for us, so we'll continue to take those things in consideration. But placing the sidewalks in, really, it's not going to be something that we can do with the guideline or with the approach that we've already established in regards to the way that things are functioning with parking and those sort of things. But we're confident that it functions well. It's a great community. Continues. That's part of the reason we're here today, at giving up commercials so that we can continue to expand this, because it's a great success, and there's a good market for it.
Commissioner?
Aubrey? Similar to my question on the cul-de-sacs the other day, this is probably going to sound like a dumb question to ask, but what are the city's goals in requiring sidewalks?
Just to get people safely where they need to go. So I think in this situation, I think what Kendall is stating is that because there's low traffic, narrow streets, short distances, that people are able to use the street network in lieu of having a separated sidewalk. So really our goal is just to be able to allow people to get safely where they need to go, however that's provided, a trail, a sidewalk, any other type of conveyance mechanism. Typically, we don't like to put people in cars in the same pathway, which is why most of our policies say to require sidewalks in every subdivision.
But there are instances where the street can serve in that function, and we feel okay about that.
A lot of existing neighborhoods right now in Oklahoma City that don't have sidewalks, residents end up walking in the street, and typically, those are the low-traffic streets. But there are always instances where there could be accidents when people in cars mix. So it's really kind of a judgment call, and that's why it's a guideline and promoted as, encouraging when new development can accommodate sidewalks. We'd like them to be separated from the street.
So if the TEs are met, then staff is comfortable with the tree preservation? Okay. Commissioner Coffey, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I recommend approval of the application.
Second?
Is there anybody here who wants to be heard on this matter before we vote? I have a motion and a second to approve item number 8. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
And item 9 is the related plat for this case, T6933, Whispering Creek, Phase 2.
Again, for the record, Kendall Dillon and Crafton Toll, representing the applicant. I think we have 5 TEs. They're all pretty much standard TEs that we're in agreement with, and would ask for your approval.
Additional discussion here?
Did you want some? Is there anybody present who wants to be heard on this matter? No? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
I would note that the staff report states that the design of the preliminary plat is in conformance with the subdivision regulations. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 10 is case C6939, the final plat of Twin Silos, Section 1.
For the record, Kendall Dillon, Crafton Toll. Final plat that's almost identical to the approved preliminary plat. We have 4 TEs, I believe. We're in agreement with all of them. On TE number 4, if you notice, it does state that we have to have a emergency access, which we plan on. It doesn't appear on this. I've got a board over there if you care to see it, but we are providing an emergency access all the way to the west from 150th through one of the lots. We have sent that to the fire marshal's office. They're in agreement with it. So with the construction of that, it meets your code. So we agree with the TEs. Ask for approval.
It's not entirely apparent from the depiction that we have where your access onto 150th Street is, so you might want to show us that.
I think, yep.
I think it was just a cartographer's error.
This is the actual final plat. So that if you look, I think there was a little bit of an error in the map when it was created, but our access is immediately across the street from the one on the south, and so it looks like this, if you can kind of picture, so you can see how the streets tie together. So
it
we do have
matches-
an access to our addition.
It matches that entrance to the south?
Yes.
So, okay.
I think so.
And the other little red line there is your
That's the
emergency
emergency
access?
access, correct.
Okay. Is there anybody present who wants to be heard on this matter? Commissioners, comments, questions, motions?
I recommend approval of the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 10. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you.
Item number 11 is SPUD 1002 to rezone 7820 South Pennsylvania from PUD 1249 to SPUD 1002.
Is the applicant present? you come forward, please give us your name and address for the record. Just pull the microphone down, if you would.
That's the location that...
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Hong Nha Hun,
And your address?
7820 South Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Tell us what you're asking us for today.
I want to rezone that to, right now there's the hair salon in one side, and I want to live on the other side. So I want to live and work in the same place.
Commissioners, I was a little confused by this. Apparently, when the previous PUD was put in place, it allowed for these uses in a residential structure, but did not allow for it to continue to be used also as a residence. So now, in order for it to be a work-live kind of arrangement, there has to be a rezoning, and that's what we're here to do today.
Yes.
And I was also a little confused by what the staff report says about parking. The latter of the two comments is the one that applies, that the 5 parking spaces will be deemed sufficient. So there's not going to be additional parking provided, but I guess the addition of a residence to a commercial structure is probably not going to increase the traffic that much. So, have any comments, questions? Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard on this matter? No? Commissioners?
Move approval of the application.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Item 12 is SPUD 1014 to rezone 8216 Northwest Expressway from C3 to SPUD 1014.
The applicant present? Would you come and give us your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Brett Flory. I'm with Cross Architects, 1255 West 15th Street, Plano, Texas.
And what is it that you're seeking today?
SPUD approval for our, basically a change of use for this automotive repair facility. Right now it's automotive mechanical repair, and we want to change it to a automotive collision repair.
This is the existing use? I'm sorry, is it, you're changing the use, though?
Well, the use is allowed, and we are essentially just wanting to get our outdoor storage approved, outdoor vehicle storage.
Well, that was the thing I was going to ask you to eliminate, frankly. I'm not crazy about the idea of outdoor storage. Sales and display are one thing if they're taken in at night, but outdoor storage is kind of a whole different deal.
What do you, let me ask you about your storage. What do you intend to do there? What's the need for the storage, if I could ask? This is the area that you're in, and if I'm making sure I understand this, the TLC is back toward the east of you, right?
Yes.
The bank's back toward the west down the road.
Yes.
And you've got there's a pretty good gap between you and Britton Road that's kind of a bit of an uphill grade, and I think it's fenced back there, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then the building that's the child care that's back to the back that fronts onto Britton, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you going to keep the existing building that you have, because that's pretty far back off the street.
Yeah,
So
it
I
is.
wondered what your thought was there.
We are going to keep the existing building.
Okay. No changes to that?
No
Size-wise, everything's good?
Yeah, everything works.
Pretty good-sized building.
Yeah, it works as is.
So isn't that Richards right now?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, so how much outdoor storage are you looking to put in? Are you going to look, you can see your footprint now. Is it just going to be the existing spot that's out back, or?
Well, there's not much parking out back. There's a little bit on this east side. Most of the parking's out front, and there's really not a lot of parking here. But normally Caliber, they park cars behind the fence, when the cars come in, getting ready to be processed, and after they complete a car. If a customer hasn't picked it up yet, they park it out there. But they don't keep any total cars on site. All cars that come in that are totaled are hauled off within 24 hours typically. And this is just extra storage, parking, call it outdoor vehicle storage, but it's just basically screened parking that gives them some ability to, not
Load it up
make
front.
this work on a really tight site.
And so, all right, so that's a space where you would put cars that are dropped off, waiting to be repaired, cars that are going to be repaired, or have been repaired,
Yes.
excuse me.
Yes.
That are now waiting to be picked up.
That's right.
And that'll be screened in accordance with what you've set out in your SPUD.
Yes.
Are you going to screen back toward the TLC side?
We've got it totally secured, fence on 4 sides.
Is it, I couldn't remember, is that chain link that's back toward TLC, or,
Yes, that's a chain link.
and then that's going to be stockade back to the back toward the residential side?
Yes.
You're not going to stockade toward TLC? I get why
Yeah,
you
we
put-
are. We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then the east and the south
Yes.
will be stockade. Will the west too? I don't know why you would, frankly.
There is on the west, the building almost sits on the property line. And so,
There's not much there.
and there's an existing fence across the south. So really, we're just looking at fencing up the east side and then part of the parking lot out front.
Okay. All right. So you have a sign. Of course, we'd like to see you take down your sign, just because we don't like signs,
Yeah.
large pole signs, but I can understand why you may not want to do that. But it says, are you planning, just so we talk about your sign, are you planning any additional sign?
I
You
don't
got one
believe-
pole sign, is what I understand.
Yeah,
In my
the pylon sign would be adequate on Northwest Expressway. They'll have signage on the building, but
Just on the building,
Yeah.
accessory.
accessory signage, yes.
All right.
No additional signage.
Okay, and
Northwest
what are you going to do with your existing sign?
Basically, put a caliber collision sign on there, but keep the same pole, the same size, not modified in any way other than just changing it to
And
updated.
so that's 25 feet. Would you consider making that a monument sign? If you intend to keep, if you won't agree to get rid of it?
Well, I know the pylon sign's important to them. They would prefer to reuse it if at all possible.
All right. I don't have anything further right now.
So I just want to be sure I understand. You're saying that all of the outdoor storage is really just the cars that are waiting to be repaired or waiting to be picked up?
That's correct.
Can we add that as a TE?
I'm sorry.
Can we add that then as a technical evaluation, a condition of approval? And it's all kept within site-proof fencing? So
Yes.
it's not, can we add that also?
Absolutely.
Okay, then. Is there anybody else present who wants to be heard on this matter? Commissioners, any comments or questions or?
I just wanted to be clear, Mike, on the monument sign, now you're going to have to take down your pole sign that's existing right now, right?
Well,
Put in-
they haven't agreed to that. I don't think they're going, the way I understand it, I don't think they're going to agree to that. That's,
They would like to keep the existing pylon sign.
they want to keep the existing sign.
I thought I understood that you were planning to put up a different sign
No, just on the building, just
on the building.
sign.
Oh, I see, on
Just on the building, the
the
accessory.
attached sign. I see.
I'd like to get rid of one. I don't know that I'm going to be able to. Here's the point. Can you enhance your landscaping around the sign that you have?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. We can add landscaping out there.
All right. So, anybody want to speak on this?
I think actually one of the TEs is in regards to landscaping requirements.
Yeah.
And you're in agreement with
Yes.
the existing TEs, right,
That's correct.
from the staff report?
Okay, I'll move approval of the application, subject to, we'll add, make sure we have enclosed or screened storage for the outdoor storage use behind on the southwest and east sides, right? On all sides.
Yeah.
Storage will be used for cars that are waiting to be serviced and cars that have been serviced and are waiting to be picked up.
That's correct.
Will also enhanced landscaping around the pole sign.
Yes.
Clean that up. And then also you agree with the rest of the technical evaluations.
Yes, sir.
That's the motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 12, the addition of those TEs. Would you cast your votes, please? It's approved.
Thank you.
Item 13 is SPUD 1016 to rezone 3708 South Douglas Avenue from PUD 137 to SPUD 1016.
Okay. For the record, Ted Teskey, 3008 Hickory Stick Road, on behalf of the applicant. With me is David Kennard, 942 Chautauqua, Norman, also on behalf of the applicant. The subject property is a 157-unit, 55-plus apartment community on the corner of Douglas and Southwest Grand, 1/2 block west of Southwestern. The current zoning is PUD 137 from 1982 with a base zoning of R4. There are currently 102 parking spaces on the subject property. The PUD 137 requires a 55-plus age restriction for tenants due to the limited parking on the site. What we want to do is rezone to the new SPUD 1016, which addresses the parking and eliminates the age restriction. The new SPUD requires a perpetual shared parking agreement, which we have drafted in consultation with the planning department. It's ready to sign and file at the county. The agreement is with this parcel right here, tract 2 on the plans that you see. It is a C3 zone lot, also owned by the owner of the apartment complex. It has 107 parking spaces. Together, the two parcels, the apartment complex and the C3 zoned lot next door, have 209 parking spaces. Those 209 parking spaces represent 1.33 parking spaces per apartment unit. This would allow the tenants to use, the shared parking agreement would allow the tenants and guests of the tenants at the apartment complex to use that lot as overflow parking when necessary. We provide in our plans, and you see in your packet, 2 pedestrian access points from this adjacent lot into the apartment complex. One right here at the corner, and you see pop down and side view details of those, and one right here. Additionally, on the complex, which is a gated community, we have pedestrian access points here at the main automobile entrance. Here by the office, here, and here. Total of 5 currently. There will be a total of 7 pedestrian access points. Aside from, in addition to mentioning the shared parking agreement, the new SPUD provides that all existing improvements in place are allowed. And also allows us some flexibility on signage along Grand. On the text of the SPUD, we worked with Mr. Chambliss and Mr. Gross at the Planning Department, and we've consulted with Commissioners Highsmith and Powers. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Show me where the existing dumpster is.
Yeah. There's a dumpster right here in this alley in the corner. This alley right here. These commercial lots right here. There's ours.
I did meet with the applicant. I feel fairly certain I didn't do anything to indicate to them that I was going to be in favor of any EMD signage, certainly not for a residential use. But one of the things we talked about was how you would accommodate access, since the additional parking that you're going to provide through cross-access agreements is actually higher, isn't it? Yes. So how you'll meet ADA standards for parking for the unit as a whole?
Right. There are currently plenty of ADA parking spaces on site. You see them, you see them just very faintly next to the ramps here, and here. I believe it's currently conforming in regard to the number of ADA spaces. As far as access from here, you're right, at this corner, there's an elevation difference of 31 inches. We'll provide stair access down there. We're also adding access right here where there is no elevation difference. The reason why we chose these two spaces, one, because there's room added. Two, this area here is the area where we feel parking is the tightest. And so we think that the people living in this area back here will be the people most likely to use the parking in this adjacent lot.
So this is kind of an interesting application, even though it's very successful, I understand, as a 55 and older restricted unit. Nonetheless, it is a two-story facility, and so, you know, there's some need to be able to make use of the second story for younger people, which kind of makes sense to me. I cannot support the EMD sign. We're going to have to do something about that.
We're willing to scratch the EMD sign.
Great.
And may I speak to the second story? Well, it is mostly full. There is a marked difference in the rents of the upstairs units and the downstairs. For otherwise identical upstairs units, one bedrooms are getting $87 less than downstairs. For otherwise identical two-bedroom units are getting $99 less. And so we're having to cut prices significantly. That represents about 20% of our total rent to build up upstairs.
Interesting.
So are the buildings, do they exist currently? These have not been built.
They're currently existing.
Okay.
It's two-story apartment buildings.
And so now you have 55 and older in there that were potentially planning on this being a 55 and older complex. And now you have a combination of Del Boca Vista and the Hard Rock. It just seems to kind of be a bit of a conflict for the upstairs, downstairs, when it's been marketed that way at some point. I get why you want to, because the elderly people, which, by the way, that's what is the name of this land use, 55 and over is elderly housing.
I didn't use that term.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't.
It's not personal. It's not personal.
I know you didn't. Just so you guys know. So I just wonder how that conflict works when we have this situation where we have a property that's been marketed as this, and we've kind of planned on that.
These are rental units, though.
Pardon me?
These are rental units, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they are. I get they're
So
rentals.
it's not people who've bought these.
No, I get that would really be a challenge. I certainly agree, but I just didn't know how those uses may conflict after a property is already established, built, and has. What's your occupancy? Do you have any idea?
It's 99%. I think we just have one unit.
They're making a strategic change. What they're doing.
Clearly.
I mean, it's about the rent differential. So, 20% of revenue differential loss between your upstairs and downstairs unit is significant in a project of that size.
For us, though, I mean, this is kind of an object lesson for me a bit for how these units are going to work. effect, and I get the commercials, it certainly makes sense. But as you kind of think about these projects from now, and if you've got a two-story use, you're basically now got an apartment complex. That's it. There are no age restrictions, although you have a significant number of occupants that are 55 and older.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Dave Kennard. Yes, it's very confusing. As I believe, I wasn't there when the complex was actually built, but I believe since there wasn't adequate parking, the plus 55 was sort of something that was added on to satisfy the city due to the lack of parking in the complex. And I think there's enough paper trail to kind of show this discussion back in 1983. Since 1983, lots have changed, and one of the things that has changed is a big boom in building 55 and over apartment complexes. And there's also been lots of government involvement by offering tax credits and building these complexes, and you're probably aware of that. So there's really an adequate supply, and they're continuing to being built and even to be improved on, as the gentleman before us have pointed out. So this is, as an apartment complex for 55, it's sort of obsolete. It was never really meant to be that way, and now that there's continual supply being added, including getting tax credits to, increase the supply of 55 and older senior complexes, we become more and more of a complex in this very small market niche that is kind of the place of last choice. Also, the city has changed since 1983. Everybody's aware of what's going downtown, and everybody's aware that there's always a complaint that there's not affordable housing near downtown. We have a complex that is, a couple miles from downtown on a bus route that is really attractive for workforce housing. Not everybody who works at Devon Energy makes $100,000 a year. There's people there who, are paid much less and can't afford to live near where they work. Instead, now they have these big commutes that are a hassle for them, clog the streets, and creates a lot of problems. Here we have something that's bikeable to downtown in some ways. And so it's kind of the project now, in the way it was formatted as a 55-plus complex, it's now obsolete. And the best and highest usage for not just the owners, but for the city, is to provide, workforce housing for people who work at Southwest Medical, for instance, or work downtown. This is probably the newest complex in this, south of downtown area, down to probably almost down to I-40. It's a really unique location that is completely marketable to a market other than 55 plus, and that's why we're asking to be released from this. We understand we have tenants who are 55 plus who are counting on us to continue leasing to them, but our turnover is 50% a year right now. So odds are most of these people will be gone. We're not really 55 plus, we're more like 78 plus if you look at our demographics. So we continually having turnover to other complexes which are a lot easier to live at, to assisted living places, or to the final assisting living home. So this is the kind of situation we're in. It's really the right place right now with the wrong business plan, and we want to change that. And we are being aware that we have people who've lived there for a while who are 78 years old, and we don't want to turn their lives upside down, and we're willing to agree over a 2 or 3 year period to bring their rents up to, a market rent, whatever that may be. Or maybe they're paying market rates right now, but we will keep that in mind, and I'm not going to, throw people out on the streets because of that. Okay?
I also want to speak to something that Mr. Kennard mentioned. The original PUD 137 seems specifically to tie the 55-plus age restriction to the parking on the site. From the second page, in order to retain the parking requested in the PUD, developers and owners agree to maintain the project to be occupied by elderly households. Are there any other questions?
Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on this matter today? Commissioners, any other comments or questions? Do you have a motion?
I move to approve.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 13. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved. Good luck.
Item 14 is PUD 1657 to rezone 2525 Northwest 112th Street from R1 to PUD 1657.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the developer, who is also here with me. This application is a bit of a unique one in that what my client intends to do is take a now vacant elementary school and turn it into an office building. When you look at the site before you, we've included the entirety of the site in our PUD. You'll see a series of buildings on the north side of the main building. Those were temporary buildings. My client is acquiring this from Oklahoma City Public Schools, and they assured us that they will remove those temporary buildings this week. I know you asked me, Ms. Powers. But part of the deal is they have to remove them. My client has no use for them, doesn't want to use them. We did have a neighborhood meeting with everybody that received notice with our application, and several others that came as well. And one of the big concerns they had were the temporary buildings, because as you imagine, they're unsightly when they're in use. When they've been vacant for several years, they're even worse. So it's a unique concept. My client's going to largely leave the building the same as it is. So what once was a child's classroom will now become an office. So the neighborhood, frankly, was fairly excited about the opportunity to have a redevelopment of this building rather than the alternative. The alternative, what you probably see here, would be the building going away and redevelopment for single family. So the sense we got from the neighborhood meeting was one of support. The neighborhood association did follow that up yesterday with a letter of support that I've sent staff, and I did share with Ms. Powers. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. There are 2 TEs, both of which we agreed to. Staff did ask that we add the word internal between the word requires and pedestrian within TE number 2. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So there were a few things that were said at the meeting that I wanted just to follow up on. Initially, the owners, the purchasers, indicated that they were going to retain the signage that was there. People seemed to kind of like that idea. You indicated you didn't think they would. So
Sure.
Has something happened? Is it not viable? Is it?
No, perhaps there was some misunderstanding. I don't believe my client intends to keep that sign. If you look at the sign, it's a old school, you put the little suction cup letters into it. It's a reader board sign. And so that they don't have any use for that. So what we have in our PUD is a monument sign at 8 feet tall.
Okay. I guess I hadn't really focused on what it looks like. I just remember that it came up.
Sure.
And then also there was some question about, the hours of operation. And I mean, I understand it's an office, and although your clients were indicating they often work late and come early.
So so it's a typical office. Their staff will likely be there from 8 to 5, much like me and several people on this horseshoe. Pre-8 is when they get to the office, and they leave after 5. So I think their general office hours are 8 to 5, but as the owners of the company and the ones that are in charge, 8 to 5 just frankly doesn't work. However, their use doesn't have a real big interaction with the public, so there wouldn't be a real concern that there's a lot of public engagement with the site. But yes, it's a typical office 8 to 5, but again.
Is there some way to reflect that actually in the verbiage or text of the document itself? I mean, I totally get what you're saying,
Sure.
but
I don't think so. If you think about why we put restrictions in a PUD or a SPUD, it's so that the city can have some level of enforcement. I think it's probably not likely that the city is going to be in a position to enforce an 8 to 5. If you think about how that might happen. I didn't get that was a big concern from the neighbors, but if you think about how that might happen, I don't know what would happen. It was 5:05 and a light was left on, so the neighbors called code enforcement.
I'm
don't know how you enforce
kind of
it.
thinking more about, because there's so much open space, and you are including like a community recreation use, and I mean, is there some way to indicate that the property won't be used for other things than, the office building, and if it's residentially developed, whatever that is?
Boy, I don't know. I don't think so. You know, one of the...
I could see some uses, though, that you might want to foster in the evenings, soccer games, baseball game,
And there was that kind of
Yeah,
discussion.
they probably
And the
used to
neighbor-
do that at that school. I mean,
And the neighbors asked, about the ability to perhaps have neighborhood meetings in the facility. And that was something that my client, frankly, was, excited about and is excited about reintegrating this building into the community. So I just don't know that there's a way to do that.
Okay. So then the other things that were raised and discussed were the parking.
Right.
That your clients indicated that they thought that the parking that was on site currently would be sufficient for their needs.
That's correct. There is a potential to maybe park in back. Several of the neighbors have reached out to my client, asked that. So what we've got is sufficient, but if, while working with the neighbors, they decide maybe some behind the building parking is what they want, then my client will address that. But as of now, what we've got on site is what we are going to go with.
And then also the curb cuts.
Yeah, so all we're adding is one potential curb cut on Victoria Place, and that's just in case there is development of the back piece, we'd need an access point to it. But right now, we plan on keeping all the existing curb cuts and then adding the potential of one additional on Victoria to be able to access that back piece.
If it's developed.
Yeah, if it's developed.
Okay. I will say that the neighbors were actually quite excited about the school being preserved's not quite the right word, but being reused and finding a new life. And there were comments to the effect that this use would probably generate less traffic than the school did. So even though it is in kind of the heart of a neighborhood, it's the overall concerns about traffic were really minimal. Is there anybody present who wants to be heard on this matter? Commissioners?
Move for adoption. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 14. Would you cast your votes, please?
Thank you.
It's approved.
Item 15 was continued to November 9th. Item 16 is SPUD 1017 to rezone 1447 Northwest 27th Street from R2 to SPUD 1017.
And this is a project done by my office, so I'll be recusing myself.
Don't go anywhere.
the applicant here?
Is the applicant present? Snap out of it.
My name is Klaus Ryman Phillip, and I'm representing Nathan Cow from Omega Investments in his effort to rezone a parcel at Northwest 27th and North McKinley Avenue. And basically, the site is zoned R2 currently, and we are making changes to R2. We're leaving it R2, but making slight changes to allow for 4 single-family houses versus your typical single-family arrangement. But they would still function as typical single-family houses, and we intend on them to be a for-sale product. So each house would be its own individual, development.
So this item and the next item are companions. They're seeking to put 4 individual units on these lots, and they're going to do the lot splits, and, well, that's not quite right, but we're going to do that so that they can sell them rather than have rental units. This is quite close to OCU, of course. It's next door to the United Way headquarters, across the street from the Blue Door. This is, I think this is a good infill development. We've met and talked, and there are a few items that I asked them to adjust. With respect to the height, I wanted it to come down a little from 35 feet. They think 28 and a half is sufficient for what they intend, and so we'll make that change. For some reason, the staff report, or the master design statement indicated something about signage that we needed to change. It said it would be allowed or wouldn't be required.
I think we still wouldn't be required for the
Wouldn't be
property,
required,
but
yeah.
I probably could have just
Supposed
left
to, yeah.
it out, the master design statement.
I wanted some more specific language describing the site-proof fencing, which they've agreed to do, and also to make it clear that there won't be dumpsters on site, that it'll just be standard residential trash collection. So they've been willing to make all of those changes, and so I'm quite satisfied that this will be a good project. Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on this matter today? There's nobody left. So, commissioners, comments, questions, concerns?
Have your suggested changes been incorporated into what's in front of us?
No, but I have them here to give staff, so I'll do that.
Okay. So, I don't have anything on this. I think it benefits this area, kind of an extension of redevelopment from OCU back. I think it's great. So, I'll make a motion to approve item 16, subject to the conditions recited by Commissioner Powers and provided to staff.
Second the motion.
Is that all right with everybody?
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16 as amended. If you'll cast your votes, please.
Those go into plan.
And then item number 17 is the lot split piece of it, and it requires a variance.
If nobody's got any questions, I'll move the variance on TE2.
I have a motion and a second to approve the variance to TE2. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
I'll move the application.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 17. Would you cast your votes? It is approved.
All right, thank you.
We are back to item number 7, ABC 908.
I'm not quite sure what to do about this. I'm not inclined to hand out an ABC without the applicant showing up. Did staff contact her, or yes? Shall we give her one more chance?
Sure. Why not?
Continue it 2 weeks. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 7.
Just before we vote, JJ, and maybe it's an issue for fire, but I had just one real kind of question about these interior rooms, and if in fact you needed to exit, you had to go through 4 doors, I think, to even get to, the exit corridor, and it just seemed to be a lot of, it seemed to be a trap, a fire trap, really.
Well, you need to ask the applicant about that. I think
Okay.
that's by design. I think what this is one of those escape rooms where you go in, you're locked in, and you go through answering a series of questions, trying to escape from one room to the other, and get out in a certain amount of time.
Okay.
I had forgotten.
We'll ask the applicant if she shows up,
Looking at the
okay?
plan, that's what it appears to me, and she calls them, they're each called the game rooms, so I believe that's what it is.
I had forgotten that you will not be here next time. Would you like for us to continue this until you can be present?
Yes, if we could continue it to December meeting?
The first meeting in December?
Yes. Or December the 4th.
Chairman, I was too slow to mention, this was
December
the
the
second
14th.
absence in a row, wasn't it? Did
That
we
is
give them a
correct.
third chance?
Yes, this is their second try, so we'll give them one more, but we'll make them wait until December 14th. Is that right? Do I have a motion?
Move continuance to the second meeting in November.
No, December 14th.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. We only have one meeting.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second motion.
A motion and a second to continue item number 7 until December 14th. Would you cast your votes, please?
City government.
And it is continued. There's no one left, so I'm guessing there's no more business to be conducted. Let me go through my list. Planning Commission committees, we don't have any report. Planning Commission members, anybody have anything they want to add?
I just have one. I see the fee in lieu provision in our staff reports, and for me, I just want to know what that means as to when we get the sidewalk, when the sidewalk actually gets put in relative to the development, et cetera. And so the concept is there. I just don't know how that works with when the pavement gets poured and we actually have a sidewalk. I don't need an answer now. I just kind of raised that point. I'm concerned about sidewalks just in general, but less so on new development because I think we're catching up than I am about existing development, Northwest Expressway, several other places in town. But it just occurred to me, when do those things actually go in in tough budget times, do they just say, well, we'll just keep this money over here, or is it specific allocation?
When I see those, I always wonder whether this is just boilerplate that's just stuck in there because it says this every time it comes up, or whether it actually means something relevant to a particular application. So I agree with that.
We'll find out and get back with you.
Anybody else? Where am I? Planning Department, Development Services, Municipal Counselor, citizens to be heard, other business. I'll take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Cast your votes. We're adjourned.